the Pacific Rim franchise, the alien kaijus are called kaijus and are classified into different categories based on their size and characteristics. Here are some of the known categories and specific kaiju names. Categories. Category I, smaller kaijus, around 50 to 60 meters tall. Category 2, medium-sized kaijus, around 80 to 100 meters tall. Category 3, larger kaijus, around 120 to 150 meters tall. Category IV, the largest and most powerful kaijus, around 180 to 200 meters tall. Category V, the most powerful and destructive kaijus, capable of destroying entire cities. Specific kaiju names. Odachi, a Category IV kaiju, a giant winged creature with a deadly tail. Leatherback, a Category 3 kaiju, a giant ape-like creature with electromagnetic powers. Knifehead, a Category 3 kaiju, a giant shark-like creature with a deadly knife-like head. Slattern, a Category IV kaiju, a giant reptilian creature with incredible strength. Raijin, a Category 3 kaiju, a giant reptilian creature with electric powers. Scunner, a Category 2 kaiju, a giant reptilian creature with a deadly venomous stinger. Anababa, a Category 2 kaiju, a giant demonic creature with sharp claws and teeth. Trespasser, a Category 3 kaiju, a giant reptilian creature with incredible strength. Mutivore, a Category 3 kaiju, a giant reptilian creature with the ability to adapt to its environment. Gypsy Danger's kaiju, a Category 3 kaiju, a giant reptilian creature that was killed by Gypsy Danger. These are just a few of the many kaijus that have appeared in the Pacific Rim franchise. Here's a breakdown of the scenario. The story begins at night, with a radioactive meteor falling into the ocean. The meteor sinks deeper into the water until it reaches a portal. As the meteor enters the portal, a bright light energy emanates from within. The screen then focuses on the portal's interior, where a kaiju, a monstrous creature from Pacific Rim lore, begins to emerge. The kaiju has distinctive purple eyes. As the kaiju's head breaks through the portal, it lets out a mighty roar. Suddenly, the screen fades to black, setting the stage for the next part of the story. Here's a breakdown of the scenario. The screen fades back in, revealing a new entity, SCP-682, also known as the hard-to-kill reptile, or indestructible monster. This creature is a highly aggressive, resilient, and adaptable reptilian monster from the SCP Foundation universe. SCP-682 is now seen swimming underwater, traversing the entire ocean with ease. Its indestructible nature makes it a formidable creature, capable of surviving even the most extreme conditions. The stage is set for SCP-682's encounter with the purple-eyed kaiju that emerged from the portal earlier. What happens next is up to you. Here's the continuation. SCP-682's gaze fell upon a glowing portal on the ocean floor. The portal pulsed with an otherworldly energy. Without hesitation, SCP-682 swam towards the portal with incredible speed. As it approached the portal, the water around it began to distort and churn. SCP-682 swam inside the portal, its massive body disappearing into the shimmering light. The moment SCP-682 was fully inside, the portal slammed shut behind it. The ocean floor was once again still, the only sign of the portal's existence a faint, glowing residue. SCP-682 had vanished, transported to unknown depths. The question remained, where had SCP-682 gone, and what awaited it on the other side? Select to speak. Here's the continuation. SCP-682 floated underwater, still disoriented from the portal transition. Suddenly, it stumbled upon 7 giant alien kaijus from Pacific Rim. Odachi, Leatherback, Knifehead, Trespasser, Raiju, Scunner, and Slattern floated before SCP-682. Their purple glowing eyes fixed on SCP-682, piercing through the darkness. The kaijus roared in unison, their deafening bellows echoing through the water. SCP-682 retaliated with a thunderous roar, its voice matching the kaiju's intensity. With a burst of speed, SCP-682 launched itself forward, its green glowing tail propelling it like a torpedo. However, the kaijus outreacted SCP-682, their swift movements a testament to their alien physiology. With a synchronized swipe of their massive claws, the kaijus sent SCP-682 flying across the underwater landscape. SCP-682 crashed into a nearby underwater rock formation, the impact sending shockwaves through the water. The kaijus closed in, their purple eyes blazing with an otherworldly hunger. SCP-682, 682, still reeling from the impact, prepared to face the onslaught of the 7 giant kaijus. Pause. Here's the continuation. The 7 kaijus suddenly activated their glowing purple eyes, unleashing a burst of unnatural speed. Their massive bodies hurtled through the water, colliding with SCP-682 in a frenzy of claws and teeth. SCP-682 retaliated by swinging its green-bladed tail in wide arcs, pushing the kaijus back. However, the monsters quickly adapted, their eyes glowing brighter as they grabbed SCP-682's tail. With a synchronized heave, the kaijus threw SCP-682's tail at the nearby rock formation. The tail shattered upon impact, sending shards of green blade flying in all directions. SCP-682 roared in pain, its body momentarily stunned from the shock. The kaijus seized the opportunity, closing in for the kill. Their jaws opened wide, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. SCP-682's fate hung in the balance, its survival uncertain. Here's the continuation. The 7 kaijus, their purple glowing eyes blazing with fury, charged at SCP-682 with their metallic silicon sharp teeth and claws. But SCP-682, far from defeated, suddenly unleashed a powerful blast of green energy waves from its tail. The energy waves, pulsating with an intense green glow, struck the kaijus with incredible force. The monsters were sent flying, their massive bodies crashing into the surrounding rock formations. The impact was immense, sending shockwaves through the water and causing the ocean floor to tremble. As the kaijus struggled to regain their footing, SCP-682 seized the opportunity to counterattack. With a fierce roar, SCP-682 charged forward, its green glowing tail blazing with energy. The battle between SCP-682 and the 7 kaijus had reached a fever pitch, with neither side giving an inch. Here are the names of the Pacific Rim giant alien kaijus facing off against SCP-682. Odachi, a giant winged kaiju with a deadly tail. Leatherback, a giant ape-like kaiju with electromagnetic powers. Knifehead, a giant shark-like kaiju with a deadly knife-like head. Trespasser, a giant reptilian kaiju with incredible strength. Raiju, a giant reptilian kaiju with electric powers. Scunner, a giant reptilian kaiju with a deadly venomous stinger. Slattern, a giant reptilian kaiju with incredible strength and agility. These 7 kaijus are facing off against SCP-682, a highly aggressive and resilient reptilian monster from the SCP Foundation universe. Here's the continuation. The 7 kaijus stood before SCP-682, their massive bodies towering over the ocean floor. In unison, they let out a deafening roar, their voices echoing through the water. SCP-682, undaunted, stared back at the kaijus with its multiple green glowing eyes. The eyes, like emeralds shining in the dark, fixed intently on the kaijus. SCP-682's roar thundered through the water, matching the kaijus' intensity. The two forces, SCP-682 and the 7 kaijus, stood locked in a fierce stare down. Their roars continued to echo through the ocean, a cacophony of fury and defiance. The stage was set for an epic battle, with the fate of the ocean hanging in the balance. Here's the continuation. The moment of tension was shattered as SCP-682 and the 7 kaijus clashed in a frenzy of claws, teeth, and tails. SCP-682, with its incredible strength, grabbed the tails of Odachi and Leatherback. With a swift motion, SCP-682 threw the 2 kaijus aside, sending them crashing into the surrounding rock formations. The other kaijus retaliated, Knifehead and Trespasser biting down on SCP-682's arms. But SCP-682's regenerative abilities allowed it to shrug off the attacks. SCP-682 countered by grabbing Scunner's tail and slamming it into Raiju and Slattern. The 3 kaijus stumbled back, momentarily stunned. SCP-682 took advantage of the opening, charging forward with its jaws wide open. The battle raged on, with SCP-682 and the 7 kaijus exchanging blows in a maelstrom of chaos. Here's the continuation. The 7 kaijus suddenly unleashed a barrage of claw swipes at SCP-682. As their claws sliced through the water, they generated intense purple glowing waves. The waves crashed against SCP-682, pushing it backwards underwater. SCP-682 stumbled, its massive body struggling to resist the force of the waves. The kaijus continued to unleash their purple glowing waves, pinning SCP-682 against the portal's interior. As the battle raged on, the portal's energy began to fluctuate wildly. The water around SCP-682 and the kaijus began to distort and churn. The portal's interior was filled with an intense, pulsating glow. SCP-682 and the 7 kaijus were trapped in a maelstrom of energy and water. Their fate hung in the balance, as the portal's power threatened to consume them all. Here's the continuation. The 7 kaijus suddenly blindsided SCP-682, their simultaneous attack catching it off guard. In an instant, the kaijus grabbed SCP-682's tail, their claws digging deep into its scales. With a collective roar, the kaijus thrashed SCP-682's tail against the nearby rock formation. The impact was immense, sending shockwaves through the water and causing the rock to shatter. SCP-682's body was stretched to the limit, its tail flailing wildly as the kaijus continued their relentless assault. The portal's energy continued to fluctuate wildly, as if feeding off the chaos of the battle. SCP-682's vision began to blur, its strength waning from the intense pain and stress. The kaijus showed no signs of relenting, their grip on SCP-682's tail tightening as they prepared to deliver the final blow. Here's the continuation. SCP-682's glowing green multiple eyes suddenly increased in brightness, illuminating the dark waters. As the kaijus continued to thrash its tail, SCP-682 unleashed a mighty roar. The roar generated powerful green waves that radiated outward, striking the kaijus with incredible force. The kaijus stumbled backward, their grip on SCP-682's tail faltering. SCP-682 took advantage of the reprieve, using its powerful tail to push the kaijus further back. The green waves continued to emanate from SCP-682's roar, creating a barrier between it and the kaijus. The kaijus struggled to advance, their movement slowed by the intense energy emanating from SCP-682. SCP-682's counterattack had turned the tide of the battle, but the kaijus were far from defeated. Here's the continuation. SCP-682 unleashed a devastating attack, using the waves from its tail to tear apart the kaijus' limbs. The kaijus' bodies were ravaged, their arms and legs severed from their torsos. But to SCP-682's surprise, the kaijus began to regenerate their lost body parts. Their glowing purple alien eyes pulsed with an intense, otherworldly energy. As the energy emanated from their eyes, the kaijus' bodies began to repair themselves. SCP-682 realized it had to target the kaijus' weak point, their brains. With its green glowing tail, SCP-682 began to scratch and stab the kaijus' brains. But the kaijus' regenerative abilities allowed them to recover even from this devastating attack. The kaijus' glowing purple eyes grew brighter, their energy output increasing exponentially. As the energy waves emanating from their eyes intensified, the kaijus unleashed a massive blast of energy. The blast struck SCP-682 with incredible force, sending it flying backwards underwater. SCP-682's body crashed into the portal's interior, its vision blurring from the impact. The kaijus began to close in, their glowing purple eyes blazing with an insatiable hunger for destruction. Here's the continuation. The 7 kaijus, their glowing purple eyes fixed on SCP-682, began to swing their massive tails. Each tail swipe generated a powerful purple glowing wave that radiated outward. The waves crashed against SCP-682, pushing it back underwater. SCP-682 struggled to resist the force of the waves, its body straining against the pressure. But the kaijus' relentless assault showed no signs of abating. Their tails continued to swing, generating wave after wave of purple energy. SCP-682 stumbled backward, its vision blurring from the intense pressure. The kaijus closed in, their jaws open wide in preparation for the killing blow. SCP-682's fate hung in the balance, its survival uncertain. Here's the continuation. Onibaba, the mysterious and malevolent entity, emerged from the shadows. With a twisted grin, Onibaba reached out and pinched the tail of SCP-682. SCP-682, already beset on all sides by the kaijus, let out a pained roar. But SCP-682's response was immediate and violent. With a swift motion, SCP-682 threw Onibaba aside, sending it flying across the portal's interior. Onibaba's body crashed into the rock, its form distending and rippling as it struggled to reconstitute itself. The kaijus, momentarily distracted by Onibaba's sudden appearance, hesitated in their attack. SCP-682 took advantage of the reprieve, using its tail to swipe at the kaijus and send them stumbling back. But Onibaba's interruption had only delayed the inevitable. The kaijus regrouped, their glowing purple eyes fixed on SCP-682 with renewed intensity. The battle was far from over. Here are the names of the Pacific Rim giant alien kaijus facing off against SCP-682. Odachi. Leatherback. Knifehead. Trespasser. Raiju. Scunner. Slattern. Here's the continuation. The 7 kaijus, their glowing purple eyes blazing with fury, unleashed the full potential of their deadly alien body parts. Odachi's wings generated massive whirlwinds, while Leatherback's electromagnetic powers sent shockwaves through the water. Knifehead's razor-sharp head glowed with an intense purple light, as Trespasser's body began to radiate a deadly energy field. Raiju's electric powers crackled with energy, while Scunner's venomous stinger glowed with a malevolent purple light. Slattern's massive body began to glow with an intense purple aura, as the kaijus collectively generated a series of massive explosions. The explosions sent SCP-682 flying backward, its body battered by the sheer force of the blasts. But SCP-682 refused to yield. With a swift motion, SCP-682 swung its green glowing tail, generating a massive wave that hurtled toward the kaijus. However, the kaijus' unnatural swimming speed allowed them to dodge the incoming attack just in time. The wave crashed against the portal's interior, sending shockwaves through the water. The kaijus regrouped, their glowing purple eyes fixed on SCP-682 with renewed intensity. The battle raged on, with neither side giving an inch. Here's the continuation. SCP-682 swung its bladed, glowing green tail in wide arcs, slapping the kaijus with incredible force. But the kaijus refused to back down. With their unnatural speed, they immediately dashed forward, colliding with SCP-682 in a frenzy of teeth and claws. SCP-682 countered by slicing the kaijus' bodies in half with its bladed tail. But the kaijus' regenerative abilities allowed them to rapidly heal from their wounds. As the battle raged on, both SCP-682 and the kaijus began to generate their respective energy waves. SCP-682's glowing green tail waves clashed with the kaijus' purple glowing energy waves. The collision of the two energies generated massively oversized explosions underwater. The blast sent shockwaves through the water, causing the portal's interior to shudder and tremble. SCP-682 suddenly emitted a massively oversized green glowing wave from its roar. The wave crashed against the kaijus, pushing them back underwater. As the battlefield grew more destructive and intense, SCP-682's regenerative abilities kicked in. Its glowing green multiple eyes pulsed with energy as it rapidly regenerated and regrew its damaged, lost, or broken body parts. The kaijus, however, refused to yield. Their glowing purple eyes blazing with fury, they charged forward once more. The battle between SCP-682 and the kaijus had reached a fever pitch, with neither side able to gain the upper hand. Here's the continuation. SCP-682's green glowing tails began to emit multiple waves of energy. The waves, each one a vibrant green color, radiated outward from SCP-682's tails. The kaijus, undaunted by the incoming attack, dashed forward at SCP-682. With their unnatural speed and agility, they dodged and weaved between the incoming green waves. Odachi leapt to the side, avoiding a wave by mere inches. Leatherback ducked beneath another wave, its massive body undulating as it moved. Knifehead and Trespasser dodged in tandem, their movements eerily synchronized. Raiju, Scunner, and Slattern followed close behind, their glowing purple eyes fixed intently on SCP-682. As the kaijus closed in, SCP-682's green glowing tails continued to emit wave after wave of energy. The battle raged on, with neither side giving an inch. The outcome was far from certain, as SCP-682 and the kaijus clashed in a frenzy of teeth, claws, and energy waves. Here's the continuation. SCP-682 and the kaijus clashed in a frenzy of scratching and clawing. SCP-682's glowing green tail sliced through the water, its sharp edge raking across the kaijus' bodies. The kaijus retaliated with their own glowing purple claws, scratching deep gashes into SCP-682's scales. Odachi's claws ripped across SCP-682's chest, while Leatherback's tail sliced through its leg. Knifehead's jaws snapped shut just inches from SCP-682's face, while Trespasser's claws raked across its back. Raiju, Scunner, and Slattern joined the fray, their glowing purple claws and teeth tearing into SCP-682's body. SCP-682 roared in pain and fury, its glowing green tail flailing wildly as it struck back at the kaijus. The battle was a blur of scratching and clawing, with neither side able to gain the upper hand. The water around them churned and foamed, filled with the sounds of scratching and roaring. The outcome was far from certain, as SCP-682 and the kaijus fought on with reckless abandon. Here's the continuation. As the battle raged on, both SCP-682 and the giant alien kaijus began to utilize their glowing eyes to regenerate from their injuries. SCP-682's glowing green eyes pulsed with energy as it rapidly healed from the gashes and wounds inflicted by the kaijus. The kaijus, too, began to regenerate, their glowing purple eyes blazing with an otherworldly energy. As both sides continued to exchange blows, they started to increase the brightness of their glowing eyes. The air was electric with tension as both SCP-682 and the kaijus entered a state of fury, their rage mode unleashed. The two combatants roared simultaneously, their voices like thunder as they shook the entire underwater battlefield violently. The rage mode of both SCP-682 and the kaijus began to increase instantly and exponentially, without any limitations. Massive explosions began to erupt from their bodies, sending shockwaves through the water and causing the portal's interior to shudder and tremble. Despite the intensity of the battle, neither side showed any signs of weakening. The outcome was still uncertain, as SCP-682 and the kaijus continued to clash in a frenzy of teeth, claws, and energy waves. The battle raged on, with no end in sight. Here's the continuation. The kaijus' bodies began to generate purple glowing neon-lit trails, illuminating the dark waters. As the trails intensified, the kaijus' unnatural swimming speed and agility increased to an endless level. Their movements became a blur, as they dashed and collided with SCP-682 with incredible force. SCP-682's massive body was thrown around violently, crashing into the portal's interior and sending shockwaves through the water. The kaijus' relentless assault showed no signs of abating, as they continued to strike SCP-682 with their glowing purple claws and teeth. SCP-682's glowing green eyes blazed with fury, as it struggled to counter the kaijus' overwhelming speed and agility. The battle raged on, with SCP-682's massive body being tossed around like a toy, as the kaiju's purple glowing trails illuminated the dark waters. The outcome was still uncertain, as the two combatants clashed in a frenzy of speed and fury. Here's a breakdown of the scenario. Collision and explosions. SCP-682's glowing green bladed tail collides with the kaiju's, resulting in massively oversized explosions that spread across the underwater battlefield. Intensification of the battle. The collision triggers a massive escalation of the battle. Both SCP-682 and the kaijus begin to roar violently, and their unnatural speed and agility increase exponentially. Endless shockwaves and explosions. The two combatants start dashing and colliding with each other repeatedly, generating endless shockwaves and explosions. The intensity of these explosions increases without any limitations. Final, massive explosion. The final collision between SCP-682 and the kaijus results in a massively oversized explosion that surpasses the size of a mountain. This explosion violently shakes the entire underwater battlefield. Here's a continuation of the scene. As the dust settles, the screen showcases both SCP-682 and the kaijus floating underwater, panting heavily. Female Odachi, panting. Ugh, so strong. Leatherback, exhausted. Can't believe it. Knifehead, gasping. Need to regroup. Scunner, winded. This thing is a beast. Trespasser, breathless. We can't let it escape. Raiju, exhausted. Too late, it's already. Slattern, panting. Leaving the portal. Anababa, winded. We must warn the others. As the kaiju struggle to catch their breath, SCP-682 begins to swim away from the portal. SCP-682 breaks through the surface tension of the water and emerges onto the land. The night air is cool and damp, and SCP-682 struggles to stand up, its body battered and exhausted. With one final effort, SCP-682 lets out a mighty yawn, its eyes heavy with exhaustion. Then, without warning, SCP-682 collapses onto the ground, its body completely defeated and lifeless. The creature lies there, sleeping or resting peacefully, its intense battle with the kaijus finally over. The screen fades to black, marking the end of the story. Here's the revised continuation. As the dust settles, the screen showcases both SCP-682 and the kaijus floating underwater, panting heavily. Female Odachi, panting. Ugh, so strong. Leatherback, exhausted. Can't believe it. Knifehead, gasping. Need to regroup. Scunner, winded. This thing is a beast. Trespasser, breathless. We can't let it escape. Raiju, exhausted. Too late, it's already. Slattern, panting. Leaving the portal. Anababa, winded. We must warn the others. As the kaiju struggle to catch their breath, SCP-682 begins to swim away from the portal. SCP-682 breaks through the surface tension of the water and emerges onto the land. The night air is cool and damp, and SCP-682 struggles to stand up, its body battered and exhausted. SCP-682 is seen panting heavily, its chest heaving with exhaustion as it struggles to remain upright. With one final effort, SCP-682 lets out a mighty yawn, its eyes heavy with exhaustion. Then, without warning, SCP-682 collapses onto the ground, its body completely defeated and lifeless. The creature lies there, sleeping or resting peacefully, its intense battle with the kaijus finally over. The screen fades to black, marking the end of the story. Here's the revised continuation. As the dust settles, the screen showcases both SCP-682 and the kaijus floating underwater, panting heavily. Female Odachi, panting. Ugh, so strong. Leatherback, exhausted. Can't believe it. Knifehead, gasping. Need to regroup. Scunner, winded. This thing is a beast. Trespasser, breathless. We can't let it escape. Raiju, exhausted. Too late, it's already. Slattern, panting. Leaving the portal. Anababa, winded. We must warn the others. As the kaiju struggle to catch their breath, SCP-682 begins to swim away from the portal. The entire underwater battlefield portal lies in ruins, completely devastated and destroyed by the intense battle. SCP-682 breaks through the surface tension of the water and emerges onto the land. The night air is cool and damp, and SCP-682 struggles to stand up, its body battered and exhausted. SCP-682 is seen panting heavily, its chest heaving with exhaustion as it struggles to remain upright. With one final effort, SCP-682 lets out a mighty yawn, its eyes heavy with exhaustion. Then, without warning, SCP-682 collapses onto the ground, its body completely defeated and lifeless. The creature lies there, sleeping or resting peacefully, its intense battle with the kaijus finally over. The screen fades to black, marking the end of the story. Here's the post-credit scenario. The screen fades in, showing the exhausted and battered kaiju slowly making their way back to the ocean floor. Female Odachi, panting heavily. Ugh. I can't believe it. Leatherback, exhausted. We almost didn't make it. Knifehead, gasping. Need to rest for ages. Scunner, winded. This thing is a beast. Trespasser, breathless. We can't let our guard down. Raiju, exhausted. Too much energy spent. Slattern, panting. Time to sleep. Anababa, winded. We must warn the others later. The kaijus finally reach the ocean floor and collapse onto the sand, their bodies exhausted and battered. As they catch their breath, they slowly drift off to sleep, their panting and exhaustion-filled dialogues fading into the distance. Here's the revised post-credit scenario. The screen fades in, showing the exhausted and battered kaiju slowly making their way back to the ocean floor. Female Odachi, panting heavily. Ugh. I can't believe it. Leatherback, exhausted. We almost didn't make it. Knifehead, gasping. Need to rest for ages. Scunner, winded. This thing is a beast. Trespasser, breathless. We can't let our guard down. Raiju, exhausted. Too much energy spent. Slattern, panting. Time to sleep. Anababa, winded. We must warn the others later. As the kaijus finally reach the ocean floor, they collapse onto the sand, exhausted and battered. The camera zooms in on each of the kaijus, showing them yawning heavily as they struggle to stay awake. Female Odachi lets out a massive yawn, her jaws stretching wide open. Leatherback yawns, its long neck stretching out as it arches its back. Knifehead, Scunner, Trespasser, Raiju, Slattern, and Anababa all yawn in unison, their exhaustion finally catching up with them. As they yawn, the kaiju slowly drift off to sleep, their panting and exhaustion-filled dialogues fading into the distance. Here's the revised post-credit scenario. The screen fades in, showing the exhausted and battered kaiju slowly making their way back to the ocean floor. Female Odachi, panting heavily. Ugh. I can't believe it. Leatherback, exhausted. We almost didn't make it. Knifehead, gasping. Need to rest for ages. Scunner, winded. This thing is a beast. Trespasser, breathless. We can't let our guard down. Raiju, exhausted. Too much energy spent. Slattern, panting. Time to sleep. Anababa, winded. We must warn the others later. As the kaijus finally reach the ocean floor, they collapse onto the sand, exhausted and battered. The kaijus are seen feeling extremely sleepy and tired, their eyes drooping as they struggle to stay awake. Female Odachi, yawns. I'm so tired. Leatherback, stifles a yawn. Me, too. Knifehead, dozes off. Z's. Scunner, yawns. Need to sleep. Trespasser, nods off. Z's. Raiju, yawns. So exhausted. Slattern, dozes off. Z's. Anababa, yawns. Time to rest. As the kaijus yawn and doze off, they slowly drift off to sleep, their panting and exhaustion-filled dialogues fading into the distance. The screen fades to black, marking the end of the post-credit scenario.